Hello, everybody. Welcome to our fifth gate solar plexus activation on the Gemini Rainbow Goddess Morning Star journey. And what's really spectacular about today's gate activation is that we're also having the third of the three Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions on the same day as the fifth gate activation. So that will be on November 12th. Today's November 9th, so that'll be on Thursday. And the gate activation is happening at 19 degrees of Libra. And when we get into the class material, I'll show you where the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is. And that's really super exciting to me for many reasons, which I'll share with you at that time. So welcome, Maureen, and welcome, Leela, to this class.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you're here.
Glad to be here.
Great. So here's our agenda today. Pretty big agenda, not as big as the last one. The fourth gate was really mind-blowing. There was a lot of information being downloaded through that fourth gate activation. And I would venture to say that if there's any gate that could have handled the extensive leading edge knowledge and wisdom that was being downloaded at that time, it's definitely the heart chakra that could take that in and be able to process it and integrate it. So let's get started. We're going to start with our opening sacred space. And today I'm really excited that we're doing the invocation of Juno. She's the goddess of sacred relationship from the very beginning, from the first gate. Her role in the descent journey has been present every step of the way. So here we are. And it feels like a really, really good time to honor her and call her in. So I'm asking for either one of you to volunteer to read the invocation. I'm going to turn on my candle here. Prepare your sacred space very quickly. Smudging and spraying, whatever it is that you do. This spray is by Amanda Ellis. Her guide is Archangel Metatron, and this is the Magenta Bridge spray. I love this one because it bridges heaven to earth, and that's kind of a theme that the Golden Ray Center was developed on, bridging heaven and earth. So, who'd like to do the invocation?
Lila, do you mind?
No, I don't mind.
Okay, Leela, it's up to you.
Oh, Leela, I'm sorry. I keep saying Lila. Okay.
That's okay. I get it a lot. Invocation of Juno, goddess of sacred relationship. O royal Juno, of majestic mien, aerial formed, divine, Jove's blessed queen, throned in the bosom of cerealian air, the race of mortals is thy constant care. The cooling gales thy power alone inspires, which nourish life, whichever life desires. Mother of clouds and winds, from thee alone producing all things, mortal life is unknown. All natures share thy temperament divine, and universal sway alone is thine. With founding blasts of wind, the swelling sea, and rolling rivers roar when shook by thee. Come, blessed goddess, famed almighty queen, with aspect kind, rejoicing and serene.
Now, for those who don't know, Juno is the consort of Jupiter. And of course, at this gate, we're having that third Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. So there's just one instance of why invoking her seems very appropriate. And I love the fact that she has the peacock with her. And sometimes you'll see her just with the peacock feathers as well. And if you haven't heard, Krishna has the peacock feathers with him. If you haven't heard the legend about the peacock feathers and how they pattern kind of looks like an eye, and it's that eye of wisdom that is represented in the peacock feathers. So it's time for some fourth gate activation closure, the fourth gate activation of the heart center. And we did a little bit of this in our personal session, but this is your final opportunity where we really take this deep dive into the fifth gate, the solar plexus chakra, to consider any of the heart wounds or any of the daimons, the demons that showed up for you since our last conversation, that are desiring some space and acknowledgement from you. So any ways in which you're not allowing your heart to open, any ways in which you are seeking validation from others, any ways in which you are learning to discern your heart intelligence, and any ways in which you may have discovered a new relationship with your heart. Would anybody like to speak to any of these? Like to start, Maureen?
Well, as you know, this is a difficult one for me, and I have had to accept the fact that I'm not willing to do this yet. I am not willing to surrender. There's a lot of resistance that I'm finding, and so surrender is definitely a word that I'm working with. Trust is another one. Those are all associated with how I've closed this chakra to protect. And I've had some good validation as to this being changed, that my allies are working with me closely, ethereal allies and in physical form, working with me to open this, to release the resistance that I've held for all the years since I was 19 years old. It's a lot of resistance built up, and so it's going to take some time. But I am feeling I'm ready to do the work, and so that's where I am. Surrender and trust.
That's a huge step forward, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, when you think about your reaction and your response to surrendering the breastplate in the last class, I mean, this is just a matter of a few short weeks, a huge step forward for you.
Yes, it is. It surely is. Thank you.
Thank you. Leela, anything you'd like to share around this?
Excuse me. I'm feeling really good in my heart. Yeah, there were some good things that came up through our personal session, and I've been just really feeling into staying open in my heart, because I know that that's where I feel the most aligned with life. And so it's this place of just noticing when the contraction comes and when there's that wanting to close because of an appearance of needing to feel safe, and what that looks like. And maybe sometimes it's just needing to withdraw and be by myself, but still staying open and just noticing where those little pieces are coming, that, you know, the old stories or those places that are still healing within me. And it feels like I'm working on a really subtle level. Like I've gone down some deeper layers that are quite like subtle. It's like I really have to listen and pay attention to hear the wisdom there. And so that's what I've been doing, and it feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah. That I love your awareness and recognition of the subtlety of this work, because this particular alchemical work is very, very subtle. And so this is also a huge leap forward for you in being able to get to that place where you're recognizing those subtleties showing up. They were always there from the very first activation. And now your awareness of their presence is really, it's huge. It's really huge. And I love what you say about being aware of when you start to feel the contraction, because at any moment, we're going to be at different levels of opening. And that's all okay, because the contractions that you become aware of help us to clarify what it is that we're desiring and what it is that we're choosing to align with. And so those contractions are a part of the creative process, not something that we're going to get to a point where there's no more contraction. There's no more. No, it's a continuous evolving process. And just like the spiral, you always get to that place where you're going in and then you're coming out of it. And so it's really good that you're starting to play with that awareness of those contractions and working to consciously soften them and open them up again.
Thank you. Yes, feels powerful.
Yeah, it is very powerful. Okay, if you're ready, let's move on to seeing what's in the heavens right now. So here we see the big, I don't even know what to call it, the big event. We'll call it the big event. The fact that this third Pluto Jupiter conjunction is happening on this gate activation is enormous, and it's happening at almost 23 degrees of Capricorn. And you're going to see where this 22 Capricorn 52 becomes really super duper significant as we move through the class. So honest to goodness, if you recall from the past classes, I had this date notated at the end of the class slides as being November 21st. Somehow when I did that work, I transposed the two numbers. And somehow when I was developing the slides for this class, this conjunction just made its awareness jump out at me. And that's when I discovered that I had made the transposition of 12 to 21. And then that, of course, led to the discovery that this is happening on the same day as the gate activation. So that was a whole mystical unfolding for me that was really spectacular to experience. On the 15th, which is just a few days after this conjunction, we've got the new moon in Scorpio. And then this is a very powerful thing that's coming up at the end of the month. We've got this full moon lunar eclipse. And this eclipse is happening on the Gemini Sagittarius axis. This particular lunar eclipse is happening in Gemini, but the eclipses happen over the course of about 1.5 to 2 years on a particular axis. So the axis that was being activated by the eclipses prior to the Gemini Sagittarius axis was the Cancer Capricorn axis. And so I think this is the second of the, generally there's usually like anywhere from 7 to 9 eclipses on an axis. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what these eclipses mean. We can see up here all of the planets that are still retrograde. Right here, Mercury has gone direct this month, but the thing I want to point out is that it's going to return to the point in the sky where it began its retrograde journey on November 20th. So that's something to keep in mind because we're still kind of what they call in the shadow of that Mercury retrograde. And once it reaches that point in the sky where it did go retrograde, then we start moving forward into new territory, and you're going to be feeling much more empowered in terms of your communication with your inner being, communication with the cosmos as a whole, and you'll start seeing communications within your day-to-day life start to clear up as well. So what else do we need to look at here? Right before the full moon lunar eclipse, Neptune is stationing direct. So that's really huge. And the day after this gate activation and the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction, Mars is stationing direct, the sacred masculine. So these are some big events that are happening in this month. I mean, we're talking about 6 spectacular events happening this month. Any comments or questions about this, what's happening right now?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's look at these eclipses. So here are the eclipses that are happening along the Gemini Sagittarius axis. And you see that it started this year in June. And when this eclipse happened in Sagittarius, we were in the metamorphic underworld, the underworld where the Libra goddess was being morphed alchemically into this Gemini goddess. And this is the second eclipse that's happening at the end of this month. So this is happening while we're on this descent journey with Gemini at the 5th gate, which is activating our solar plexus chakra. And we're going to talk a lot more about the solar plexus chakra in a little bit. Then this is super spectacular. Look at this. In December, we're having a total solar eclipse. And these total solar eclipses, they're kind of rare and powerful events. So that's when you see the moon completely covering the sun. And that's going to be happening in Sagittarius. And it's going to be happening while we're in the descent journey at the 6th gate, the sacral chakra gate. Then in May next year, we're going to have another eclipse in Sagittarius. That one's going to be a total lunar eclipse. And that one's going to happen after we've come out of the Inanna underworld. And we're now in the Gemini evening star phase, which is the ascent journey, where we're ascending up now through the first gate, that root chakra gate. And then in June, we're having a solar eclipse in Gemini. And that one's going to happen just the day before we have the activation of the evening star second gate at the sacral chakra. That's happening on the 11th. The eclipse is happening on the 10th. I'm just pointing out the difference in the dates, but really with these eclipses, just like with a full moon, we know that a full moon window happens the day of, 3 days prior and 3 days after are the window, those 7 days, the window of potency of the full moon. And with eclipses, they also have a window, and their window is 6 months prior and 6 months after. And the thing to understand about eclipses is what they are doing is they're kind of like, I don't know if you've ever been to Disney World where they've got those like race cars that you can race around the track. But when you get in the race car, they've got these metal guides along your track so you don't go into somebody else's track. And that's kind of what the eclipses are. They're kind of like, bumpers that are keeping us on our evolutionary path. So if we get straight off too far, the eclipses come in and say, okay, this is a course correction, getting you back on your path. And that's the real power and significance of these eclipses. And then in December next year, we're having another total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. And that one's happening at the Gemini Evening Star 8th gate, which is the Ascension gate. And that's going to be super powerful. And this concept of the Ascension gate, you're going to see in the next slide, there's something happening at this Ascension gate, because the Ascension gate is what we call the soul star. So we have the crown chakra, but then the chakra above it, the soul star, is the Ascension gate. That's the chakra where we could say we have, a really fine-tuned access to our inner being, who is that extension of source, also called the soul, also called the higher self. And you'll notice that this gate activation is happening 2 days after the lunar eclipse. But these two eclipses that are happening a day before and 2 days before, they're going to be encoded in those gate activations. So this is really huge, that through our entire Gemini rainbow goddess journey, we are experiencing, from the very beginning, right? When Venus is in the metamorphic underworld, becoming the rainbow goddess, to the point where we are now here on the ascent in the Ascension gate. From beginning to end, we've got these eclipses on the Gemini Sagittarius axis for the Gemini rainbow goddess. This is huge. This is not a coincidence. This is the synchronicity of infinite intelligence happening through these eclipses. And remember what we talked about in the first class about the significance of this Gemini rainbow goddess in terms of rising above the polarities, being able to get to that place in the unified source field, bridging the two hemispheres of the brain, the left brain and the right brain, through the corpus callosum, and being able to go up and access at will that unified source field. And so you can see here that these eclipses on the Gemini Sagittarius axis are helping us. They're keeping us on that path, helping us being able to get up to that ability to access that unified source field. That's the Sagittarian energy, right? Sagittarius is always shooting that arrow to the highest truth, the highest wisdom, the highest point of knowingness. And what is higher than the unified source field and having access to the unified source field? That unified consciousness, right? The Christ consciousness, Sophia consciousness. Is there anything higher than that? For me, there's not.
No.
What is your reaction to this, Maureen? This is huge.
It is huge. And I'm not sure that I can do that. That's what happens to me, is to, that I can tap into that. That's what I'm trying to surrender to. I at the solar plexus gate, I have to understand that this is my source of inner power, and I've spent a lot of years giving it away, and so I have to trust. Again, there's that word trust, that I can tap into that infinite space of knowledge and truth. So I feel like I've got a lot of work cut out for me, you know, that this is a really, these two chakras, the heart and the sacral, are very different for me in terms of what I can accept at this point. So it's another tough one for me to
If I may, I'd like to try to help you make a paradigm shift around that.
Okay.
Because
Sure.
when I'm hearing it's a tough one for me, it's difficult, I don't know if I can do that. There's a lot of efforting or expectation of effort that I'm hearing in that language. And what I can say to you is that, you know, think about this Gemini Sagittarius axis, and you can kind of perceive that the Gemini energies represent the lower mind, the mind that is the monkey mind, that is always trying to figure out how to do something, how to get from point A to point B. And oftentimes we get caught in that monkey mind because we think we don't know how to get there. Whereas Sagittarius as an energy is an expression of that higher mind, that mind that we are able to access at any point when we relax and we still the lower mind. And so being able to come from this place of duality and rising in frequency to this place of the unified source field, it's an alchemical process. The alchemical process is unfolding within us in a very imperceptible way. It's not something that we have to figure out. It's not something that we have to do. It's just like the flower that is blooming. It doesn't have to know how to go from being a bud to a full-blown flower. It's an alchemical process. It happens, it unfolds naturally. And that's what's going to happen for each of us with this Gemini journey, that the raising of the frequency from the polarities to being able to access that unified source field at will is an alchemical process that's unfolding for us. We don't have to know how it's going to happen. We don't have to know when it's going to happen. We don't have to know what it's going to look like. We don't have to know when we will know that we've reached that unified source field, because when it happens, we will know without a doubt, whoa, I just had a moment where I've tapped into the unified source field. And then, of course, just like anything, like riding a bike or anything, the more that you are allowing yourself to reach that point, the more access that you have to that point. Does that make sense to you, Maureen?
Yes.
Does it help you to let go of this feeling of, I don't know how I'm going to do it, it's going to be hard?
Yeah, it will. I know, I like the comparison to the flower, that it just happens, that there isn't anything conscious about it. It just is a natural occurrence. I need that because everything is conscious to me. I am aware and of a very difficult journey. That is in my experience. Yeah, that is a better thing. And I know that you've explained that to me in my personal sessions with you, is that this just happens, that you don't have to force it or make some sort of a concession. It just happens. So all you have to do is be open to it. And so That's what I'll try. That's what I'll do. I'll
Thank
just,
you. Thank you.
yes,
And that's the key, because remember what we talked about before. When you are putting your awareness on the fact that in the past it was difficult, then what you're attracting is more difficult experiences.
of course, yes.
And when you choose, when you say, I will do it rather than I will try, when you choose to focus on, wow, this is a mystical process that's unfolding within me, and now I'm looking for the evidence of that unfolding, then the evidence can come with ease and grace.
Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you.
Feel good?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Leela, what is your reaction to this amazing evolutionary journey that we're on, and how the cosmos is supporting us in it?
It feels perfect. It feels like all of this is being prepped for this next evolution. I feel that this year, so much is being dredged up, so much of that's been hidden. I mean, with all this Scorpio energy we've been having as well, it's like what's been under the surface, and it feels powerful. And for myself, I can speak to that. I don't feel afraid anymore, of what's under there, and the things that used to have a charge I feel a lot softer in the sense of being able to integrate them.
Wow.
And that's been huge. Like this year has been like deep diving, deep diving into you know, the shadow, into the wounds, but like not pushing them away or dismissing them. It's like, okay, what's under the surface? Because it's playing out. If I don't see it, and I'm not able to allow the awareness to see what it is, it's going to just play out under the surface. So I might as well know what it is, and then it's like, oh, okay, because then when it comes up, I'm able to just here this is again and love that part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels, I mean, the big messages that keep on coming through this year is this is what you signed up for. So I'm just like, I'm here on the mission. Let me be an instrument.
Excellent. That is beautiful. It's just so spectacular. And I love what you said about this year of being a year of deep dives because of all of this Scorpio energy. And that's really true, because remember that Pluto is the Lord of Scorpio. So we started the year January 12th with this Saturn Pluto conjunction that hasn't happened since 1982. Pluto, Scorpio energy. We've got these 3 Jupiter Pluto conjunctions. We've got 3 Mars Pluto conjunctions. And so, yes, the Scorpio energy has been a huge theme over the unfolding of this particular year, 2020. So you're right. Everybody has been invited into these deep dives, and you can either go with the whisper of that invitation, or you can refuse to accept the invitation, and then you get hit by the 2x4, and then you have to do the deep dive. So it's easier to let yourself give way to it than to get hit by the cosmic 2x4, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
and I just love so much what you were saying about the flower, because I've been really resonating with that lately, like even at this time of the year and the cycle of death that we're in the wheel of the year, and the power of allowing all of those parts of ourselves, that life and death and rebirth are all parts of the same, and that if we feel like we're just so attached to just one part of that, then we're not getting the medicine of the whole experience, because we're always transforming, we're always evolving. And if we don't allow, to be able to see and let go and shed and release, then how are we going to rebirth and integrate and activate those new parts of ourselves?
You're absolutely right. And I love what you said using the word shed. Remember that the snake is one of the symbols of the Scorpio energy, and the snake is constantly shedding its skin, constantly regenerating itself. And so that's a beautiful analogy, what we have been doing, all of us, through the course of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing, thank you. The other thing I want to bring into your awareness about this Gemini Sagittarius axis is that it's the relationship path of the quest mate. And so through this journey, you know, being aware in any given moment, who is your quest mate? And I would say that absolutely your inner being is your quest mate through all of this, helping you to expand into what you have already evolved to and just catching up with that. And you're going to see in the next slide how I believe that Uranus has also been playing a key role in being a quest mate for us. And what's interesting is when I was doing some Googling for an image to represent the quest mate, I came up with this image here that I had used 3 years ago in one of my blog postings called Opening Your Heart to the Sacred Masculine. Here I was already talking about this 3 years ago before I ever even, you know, went to France on the Magdalene journey last year, before I ever sat in the seat of Isis and received the download about the sacred masculine. And so this is a little bit about the relationship path of the questmate that I wrote then. We are desiring to be with the person or persons who support our spiritual quest, our search for truth. This person is very likely not your significant other, and it is a beautiful experience when it is. That is because the questmate relationship requires much space and freedom. And so many people don't have that kind of space and freedom as a part of their relationship with their significant other. And if you are experiencing that, then that your significant other may be your questmate. But this is, you know, giving you the space and the freedom to discover your spiritual truth and supporting you in that quest. And oftentimes the people that we have these significant other relationships with are too up close to allow that kind of space and freedom. And if you do have a significant partner that allows that, then it's a very unique situation, and it's very beautiful that both of you can share in that way. So this is what this questmate path is all about, that these eclipses are happening on for us through this entire Gemini goddess journey, the descent, the Inanna underworld, the ascent. So what I did is I wanted to see what's going on between these activations on the eclipse axis and what's going on with the Uranus vision quest that we started talking about in our second class, which was the activation of the third eye chakra, the gate of perception. And we talked about how our perception is being completely expanded through this vision quest. Now, I went back and I looked at the classes. We didn't talk about it in the second gate class, but in your personal sessions is where I talked to you about that. So if you haven't yet taken the time, go back and re-listen to that information. So these are the things that I've discovered. We know that right here on August 15th, when we were at that third gate, the gate of perception activation, this very same day, that was the day that Uranus stationed retrograde. That's when the vision quest began. And we know that it's going to retrograde all the way back to 6 degrees of Taurus. And that's Uranus is going to reach that point within 3 days of us descending through the root chakra, that seventh gate before we go into the Inanna underworld. And so that tells us, okay, we're looking over this territory from 10 degrees and 6 degrees. So I went back and I said to myself, when was Uranus at this point, 6 degrees Taurus? And it was back in April when Uranus crossed over this area of the sky. And what was going on with the Venus journey at that time? We were in the Libra evening star. So evening star is the ascent through the ascension gate, which happened 2 days before. I mean, this is freaking huge. Didn't I tell you up here that this ascension gate, what's happening in our soul star chakra, is really huge between not only the eclipses happening on this axis, but also weaving that together with what's happening with this vision quest. So what happens then is that Uranus gets back to it, returns to this point in the sky, 10 degrees of Taurus, where it stationed retrograde. It returns to that place on May 1st. We talked about that being May Day, and is it Beltane? Beltane, happening here in the Inanna underworld. I mean, this is just incredible. And that this underworld phase is going to be from February 13th to May 2nd. I mean, it's reaching it right before Inanna rises out of the underworld on May 3rd. Isn't this amazing? Here, Venus is rising out of the Inanna underworld as the Gemini evening star, starting, getting ready to start that ascent journey the day or 2 days before Uranus reaches that return point. So it starts to go direct. I mean, it hits the point that it's retrograding back to right before we go into the Inanna world. That's when it stations direct. And then it hits that point where it turned retrograde just 2 days before we come out of the Inanna underworld. I mean, this is a spectacular synchronicity. Now, what's important to understand about this Inanna underworld is that this is the initiation phase. And so remember what Uranus is all about. It's all about liberation. It's all about freedom. It's all about awakening to a higher vision. And that's what's going to be happening with us while we are in the Inanna underworld with Uranus. As the initiation phase, this is the great surrender. And this great surrender creates greater personal empowerment. This is what this Uranus vision quest is doing for us. And then what we see is that when the evening star does activate this root chakra gate on May 12th, it's happening on the Gemini Sagittarius axis. And I forgot to mention earlier that when we first started this journey with the first activation at the crown, it was happening on the Gemini Sagittarius axis. Over here are all the eclipses that I mentioned right here, embedded within this Uranus journey chart, showing you how all of this is tying together. Now, what's really super spectacular in the process of me going through this discovery is what I discovered is that while we are on this Gemini journey, the descent, Inanna underworld ascent, Uranus then goes through a second vision quest in Taurus. Yes. And it starts here at almost 15 degrees of Taurus. And where does it happen? It happens when we ascend up and into our heart chakra, where we are reclaiming the power of our heart chakra. That's where this Uranus, second Uranus vision quest begins. And then you can see here, when we get to the third gate, we are again having an activation on the Gemini Sagittarius axis. And look, we had one happen here on the ascent. We had it happen here on the descent. This is amazing. And then Uranus continues to retrograde. Here it is at the 8th gate, ascending through the ascension. This is happening. This ascension gate is happening on December 6th at 24 degrees Capricorn. Well, look at where today's Pluto conjunction is happening, almost 23 degrees. So this ascension gate is happening conjunct the point where this third Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is happening. And it's happening when there's a total lunar eclipse on the Sagittarius axis. And then we see that Uranus is retrograding all the way back to 10 degrees Taurus, 49 minutes. This is within 8 minutes of where it retrograded back to, or where it started its descent journey, in this first Uranus retrograde period. So this point, 10 degrees Taurus, is a key point for us to take a look at, because it started its retrograde here, went back to 6 when we were at this ascension gate, goes back to 10. Here it's starting at 14, it's going back to this 10, where it had done this retrograde journey before. And when does it get there? It gets there just as Venus is rising in its whole new archetype, the Capricorn goddess of sovereignty, in January of 2022. So you can see that this is all playing together. The Uranus retrograde vision quests are playing in with these eclipses happening on this Gemini Sagittarius path of the questmate. And this is why I am saying that Uranus and what's happening with what's being activated in your own personal solar return charts is playing the role of a questmate for you. Does that make sense to both of you?
Yes. Ish.
Yes, Ish. This is a lot to take in. And that's why I kind of color coded this, because I want you to see where some of these synchronicities are coming together. So for instance, right here where I've highlighted this in green, this Gemini evening star root chakra gate activation is happening at 5 degrees. And then later that month, look at where there's a lunar eclipse on the Gemini Sagittarius axis, conjunct where that root chakra activation is. This is going to be a huge gate activation. This is going to be a huge evolutionary alignment for us through this gate activation. And that ties back to the fact that Uranus reached that retrograde point during the Inanna underworld just before Venus rose as the evening star. All of this ties together. You'll notice down here that this third gate, we had it on the descent journey and now on the ascent journey. It's happening at 3 degrees. So you see, this is actually opposite that point. It's the axis that's being activated. This one is here after activating at 3 degrees, very closely aligned to this eclipse point. And now look at these, 13 degrees Gemini, opposite 12 degrees Sagittarius. Up here, the very first eclipse that happened in the metamorphic underworld, 15 degrees, very closely conjunct this one here at the ascension gate. These are key places to look at your solar return chart. 3 degrees to 5 degrees. You could even say up here, this 8 degrees, 3 to 8 degrees on your Gemini Sagittarius axis. Key places to look at what's personally being activated for you by Uranus and by these eclipses. Another key gate for you is 12 degrees, 13, 15, 12 to 15 degrees on your Gemini Sagittarius axis. What's going on in there? And really 12 degrees is only 4 degrees from 8. So you could even say from 3 to 15, that whole part of the Gemini Sagittarius axis. What's going on in there for you personally with respect to your solar return chart that's being activated by these eclipses in this Uranus retrograde? And we're going to look at that in your personal session, just so you know, but you might want to take a jump on me and look at it now and see. You'll see in the vision questing, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that work and try to come up with, what does this all mean for me? And just keep looking at this data and just keep looking at what patterns are jumping out at you. Because if they're jumping out at you, they're significant for you in terms of your personal evolutionary expansion, your personal vision quest, the pieces that you missed the first time that you are picking up this time. And then remembering that this Inanna underworld phase that we're going to reach in February of next year, from February through May, is going to be huge for us. Remember, when Maureen and I were in France last year, we were there during the Inanna underworld phase. This phase of the Venus journey, as I said, it's the initiation phase. It is going to be huge. What do you have to say about that, Maureen?
Well, yeah, I understand. Underworld will be huge. It was huge last time. I can't imagine it being any huger than that, but it might be. And that would be good. I am not afraid of the underworld at all.
And keep in mind these tie-ins to the ascension gate that happen on the Libras goddess under the ascent journey, and that's going to happen under the Gemini goddess under the ascent journey. This ascension gate, this soul star chakra. You want to know, how am I going to be able to access that unified field, source field?
Mm-hmm.
This is how that's unfolding.
Okay.
Uranus and these eclipses are helping us to get there. I mean, is that the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Mm-hmm. To me, this is exquisite. What do you think about that, Leela?
Oh, goodness. I was just taking a couple notes just to remember some things that you're saying that really work for me. Yeah, it feels really powerful. I I'm really excited about the Inanna underworld phase, to be able to go through it consciously aware, because this whole journey with Venus is fairly new for me. And I was born during the Inanna underworld phase, so I'm just like, I'm excited about it. I'm excited just to feel that energy. So that feels really big, and I love all this alignment. And for me, I'm being like going through my Uranus opposition for the last, I don't even know how long. It just feels like it keeps on going forever. Because
Whoa.
I know, and I'm like, oh, it's so slow, and then it keeps on going back into retrograde, and I'm like, oh, 6 degrees again? Mine's only at 3 degrees. So it's this like, I feel like we've been dancing together for the last couple of years, so I've become really comfortable with that energy of that that radical awakener, that the one that's here to liberate. And my sovereignty over the last couple years, but especially this year, has become so strong and so important to me, and really holding that in a beautiful way. And I feel that, and in my natal chart, I've got Uranus trine my sun, moon, and Venus as well. So it's like we're buds, I'm just like, yes, bring it on. And it's like the collective awakening of the new paradigm, and that's part of what I'm here for. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about all that's happening.
That's a beautiful way to put it, the collective awakening. And when you talked about your sovereignty, listen, there is so much happening in Capricorn this year in preparation for Venus rising as the Capricorn goddess in 2022. The Saturn Pluto conjunction that happened in Capricorn, the three Pluto Jupiter conjunctions happening in Capricorn. All of this is, if you think of the farmer that has to like hoe the soil, break it up, get rid of the rocks, right, before he can even plant the seeds, so that the seeds will fall on ground in which they can take root. That's what's happening to us this year, preparing us for the rise of the Capricorn goddess of sovereignty in January of 2022.
Yes.
Okay, I know that's a lot to take in. I really recommend when you get the slides on the resource page, print off this slide, maybe even enlarge it and hang it up, so that you can just be gazing upon it and seeing how this particular part of the cosmic dance is pulling you in and catching your attention, because it will be significant for you.
Amazing.
Okay, let's talk about the gate of personal power, right? That's our solar plexus chakra, the gate of personal power. And here, Inanna is being asked to remove her ring of power and her golden hip girdle. I don't know what their golden hip girdles looked like, but I love these little belly dancing. So I thought that would be a good placeholder for the golden hip girdle. So when she's being asked to release these, to give them up, it is symbolizing the way that she is releasing all of the ways that she may have tried to have power over others or given her power away. And this is what we find on the Taurus Scorpio axis, right? If it's out of balance, how are we using our power over others? How are we giving our power away? The 8th house represents for us, which is ruled by Scorpio and Pluto, the ways in which you personally give your power away. But the beautiful thing about it is it's showing you the secret to how you can then regain the power that you've given away. And so we can look at that in your personal readings. Make a note of that if I don't recall, so that we can look at that for you, because it's so significant to this particular gate activation. Now, the solar plexus chakra is associated with the fifth gate, which is a swirl of golden light. And I love that, because that swirl of golden light, right? Most people think of the solar plexus chakra as being the yellow chakra, but at a high frequency, yellow does become gold. And so it's interesting to me that now we're talking about a gold ring, a gold hip girdle, because that ties into the fact that this is happening at this solar plexus chakra. For her to lose her ring of power, this is by Bree Sarai, which I, meaning Bree, would assume to be gold based on both the era and culture, begins to truly give the visual of her chakra system's lights going out. Remember, we're on the ascent journey from the crown to the third eye, to the throat, to the heart. Now we're at the solar plexus. There's only two more gates where she's going to be continuing to lose her power. So this vision of the lights going out in each of these chakras as she gives away her golden ring of power is really a beautiful analogy that Bree has brought into our awareness here. Inanna is slowly evaporating at the gates of her sister's kingdom of the below. You just kind of feel how palpable that is, with the lights starting to dim and extinguish as she's getting closer and closer to Ereshkigal's kingdom. This is from Mumtaz Soda. I hope I pronounced that right. She removes her hip girdle, symbolic of any restrictions to her sacral chakra. And when she does so, she suddenly feels her rage, that which she kept so hidden deep within the sacral chakra and held together by that girdle. When she releases that girdle, she begins to feel the intensity of all her feelings that she kept so locked up within her. She feels every neglected and locked away feeling, those feelings that she paid no heed to and kept from expressing, even to herself. They all came welling up like a volcano, erupting from the deep within. Her rage, her pain, her jealousy, her frustration, her deep despair. Woof. What does this tell us? What does this tell us, Maureen?
I've never thought about it that way before, that she had locked up feelings. That's, I know she had restrictions. Well, at least that's what we feel on her descent, is restrictions. But that's interesting to think of her in her journey that we align with as feeling that. That's a really different way to look at it.
It is. And what it tells us is this, that her feelings are really, because remember, she's the goddess, that those feelings which are welling up within her that are identified as her feelings are really the feelings within the collective consciousness of humanity.
Right.
Has taken on herself. And this also tells us that as we go through the gate activation, and over the course of the month for that gate activation, that these are the feelings that may start to arise for each of us individually as well. And so if and when they do, if at all you can become, right, the witness, the observer to them, and not allow yourself to get hooked into them. It'll be a part of letting go of the demons that do come up for you at that gate.
Yes. Now, is she started the descent with the knowledge that she might not be free to leave when she wanted to, the underworld? She was fearful that that might happen to her. So she arranged for there to be some help for her if that did in fact happen,
Exactly.
which it did.
Right.
So even though she knew that going in, at each gate she's asked to give up these sources of her strength and power, which she resists, but she does because she feels that the journey is that important. So that actually does reflect, to me, more of a collective feeling for the divine feminine that has gone on for a very long time. The descent has pretty much been the way the last 2,000 years have gone, probably before that, but that's what I'm aware of. So that puts a new light on it for me, is that even though she knows this is a very dangerous time for her in the mist, that she pushes through. She does not let her demons stop her from going through that gate. Nothing stops her. So that's a very powerful thing to remember about the descent journey, is her own personal descent, what Inanna is going through. I don't know why, but after all these descents, I kind of forgot about that part, that she is actually pushing through these gates and surrendering.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how you're reminding all of us about that part of the story, because we know that she does get help to bring her up out of the underworld and to allow her to ascend through these gates again and to reclaim her power. And so just as she was holding that courage as she was descending, that courage that she was holding is being mirrored to us, so that we too can hold the courage, knowing what's on the other side of being in that underworld. We will be
Absolutely.
able to reclaim that power.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And she had those safeguards ready, so that, it wasn't like all may be lost. It won't.
Right.
She knew
Right.
that. So
Right.
it does help to bring courage, I think, to each of us as we descend through these things, identifying with this goddess in the way that we do, and the symbol of her in the sky that we can see. So I think that's a very powerful memory.
It is a very powerful memory, and we too have these safeguards. And by looking at the luminary bodies in terms of what's cosmic dance happening at each of these activations, and by even expanding our vision to see, well, what's the cosmic dance happening with Uranus and these eclipses, these are our safeguards. They are telling us, yes, we are going to go through this, and yes, we are coming out on the other side more expanded, more powerful than before.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for that amazing insight, because how many times have you consciously gone through this descent journey?
Consciously since 2009, I began working with it. No, 2012. That was my own personal Venus journey, my return. So I consciously began working with the ascent during that time. I didn't realize I was in a Venus return until I started the ascent. So it's been since then. Yeah.
It's so funny that you say that you started to consciously work with the ascent journey during your Venus return, because that's what happened to me.
Oh.
Yeah, when I had my Venus return, it was during the Libra Meta Goddess. I started consciously working with it as Libra was coming up through the ascent journey. Isn't that amazing?
That is interesting. Yes.
So on some unknown or unrecognized, unperceived level within us, coming out of that Inanna underworld, during those Venus returns, woke us up to this conscious relationship with her, with the sacred feminine. I mean, that just gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. Absolutely.
Yeah. Leela, what do you have to say about this gate of personal power?
Well, I was saying to you in my our personal session that I'm leading this chakra journey with the Kundalini dance work that I do, and this past Wednesday we danced the solar plexus. So I'm feeling strong and connected in with the solar plexus at this time. But yeah, just that place of emotional purification is what's coming through when I read, what you just shared. In that place of how important it is, because in the solar plexus, it's the connection to our emotional body. It's where we hold all of these feelings of rage, of these repressed feelings that we haven't wanted to look at, or perhaps we haven't been aware of, or are so, they've just been like almost demonized. It's like this, it's gone on, like Maureen said, for so many years, especially in the journey of the feminine and all beings, but that there's been it's being revealed to be able to be seen and to be able to be cleared and healed, so that we can move into the next stage, that we can't allow the past to shape our future. There needs to find some clarity and some healing, and to honor what has happened in a way that we are now making a full circle. And so that's what really comes forward for me. And that place of courage is so key, and that courage can be loving, and courage can be in this place of, loving ourselves so much. And I think that's part of where, like, when I tune into the solar plexus, the old kind of archetype of the solar plexus is more just like, I'm the warrior, I have to protect myself. And then the new archetype is more like, what is it to be in soft power? And soft power isn't passive power. Soft power is actually like being fully embodied. It's being like empowered from the inside and radiating that out like the sun. That's what I always imagine, as like that shining in our light, being fully here and taking up space, but knowing that by us taking up space, that it doesn't mean that the person beside us can't take up space, and the person beside them, and everybody can take up space. There's enough space for us all. And yeah, that's what's really coming through for me.
I love that. I love that emotional purification. And I love the piece about that warrior energy, because remember, at the heart chakra gate last month, on the very same day, was the birth of the Aquarian Aries archetype of the fierce protector. And it's a very different energy of the old warrior archetype. So imagine now that this new sacred masculine archetype is birthed here in the heart, and is now able to come here and replace the energy of that old fierce warrior here in the solar plexus. That's a very powerful awareness that as we are going through our own metamorphosis of this personal gate power, the sacred masculine is serving and supporting us in it by installing that new Aquarian Aries sacred masculine archetype there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really feel that the deep connection to the sacred masculine in the solar plexus, like that's where I really feel that.
Yes.
And and that's that new activation of the sacred masculine, and like moving beyond this view that the masculine is toxic through the patriarchy and through all that has happened, and really elevating that. There's this need of elevating the sacred masculine, so that the sacred masculine and sacred feminine can alchemize and become that dance of those polarities together, which really creates unity and consciousness of God, Goddess, Sophia, Christ, all of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what the divine, the archetype of divine creation is all about, them being able to do that. The other thing that this statement from this person, Mumtaz, I'm not sure, I wish I knew how to pronounce that, brings into mind is, as we can be experiencing this through this gate activation, we can be seeing evidence of this on the world stage as well, as world events are unfolding in terms of all of these feelings rising to the surface. So just as I said, if you can become the silent witness, if you can step back and become the observer and not allow yourself to hook into those personal feelings, if you can do that as well in terms of what's happening on the global stage and not allowing yourself to hook into that as well, we can be aware that it is that emotional purification that Leela is talking about that we are witnessing within us and on the world stage. That's a beautiful, beautiful awareness that you brought forward, Leela. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do either of you have anything else you'd like to share around this gate of personal power? Okay, let's talk about the solar plexus chakra. So Leela has already spoken to some of this, but what we see here is that the solar plexus chakra is the seat of our personal power and will. Energetically, it is the fire that fuels our metabolism. And when activated, it increases our energy, drive, and sense of purpose. So this chakra is also called Manipura, and it regulates our pranic energy, life force energy, that Kundalini Shakti energy. It regulates it throughout our body, controlling our energy balance, vitality, and strength. It governs our digestive fires and heat regulation in the body. And from the energy of this chakra emerges the ego, our sense of self-identity. And I would say that everyone has ego. In my personal belief system, you cannot kill the ego, or you're not going to be self-identified. It's through the ego that we are self-identified. However, you can tame the ego. You can bring the ego into balance so that it's not the master. You are the master. Because if it's the master, it's like the chariot with the horses. It runs away from you. But when you become the master, you can keep those horses under control. And so this is something that we're going to be seeing on the world stage now. All of this egoic expression the highly out of balanced, negative, egoic expression that in itself is also being purified at this gate so that it can be tamed and so that we can start to work together interdependently. And a balanced solar plexus chakra enables us to move through life with genuine confidence. Well, inner strength and self-esteem. You know, we were talking about having the courage to be able to face these gates and let go of these royal vestments. And by doing so, that is where we then are able to gain our confidence. For me, courage and confidence are two sides of the same coin. Is there anything that either of you would like to add regarding the solar plexus chakra and its energy?
Feels good for me.
Good.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent. Excellent. And I love this picture. I don't know who Chakra Dance is. I guess it's this Christina. I don't know what Chakra Dance is.
It's a dance. It's a form of practice that was developed by a woman in Australia, actually. It's done mostly blindfolded, and they play different kinds of music and stuff. I did it once, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So happy that you can tell us what that is. But whoever this Chakra Dance person is that came up with this image, I just love it. All right, so let's look at the activation aspects at this gate. So we see here that the Venus and Moon are conjunct in Libra. Well, this is why we did the invocation to Juno, because Libra is the sign of sacred partnership, and Juno is the goddess of sacred partnership. And they are standing across the sky from Mars retrograde and Eris retrograde. And remember that this conjunction here between Mars and Eris is part of the conjunction that took place at the birth of the new Aquarian Aries archetype. So that, when I said, is being encoded in our solar chakra energy, is reflected by this opposition here of the Venus and Moon gate activation standing across the sky from where Mars and the goddess of radical truth were standing when that sacred masculine archetype was birthed. To me, that's beautiful. Now, what we see here is that this Libra-Aries axis, Aries-Libra axis, is forming a T-square to the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction that's happening on the same day, that third Pluto-Jupiter conjunction. And they're also very close and conjuncting with Pallas Athena and Saturn. And what have I said to you, Maureen, about Pallas Athena? Do you remember?
No, I mean, not at the moment.
Okay. Remember when you were talking about, I don't know how it's going to happen, I don't know what to do? What did I say about Pallas Athena?
What, she just does it? I don't have to worry about it. It's just going to happen.
So remember, exactly. Remember, I've dubbed her the goddess of sacred order.
Yes.
Pallas Athena is known for is knowing the exact strategy for how to get from here to there. She knows how to get past every point of resistance in you and on the path to get you from here to there. And so isn't it interesting that she has been very present in all of this work with the Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn? So this speaks to the fact that even though we can't see it unfolding, and we don't know how it's going to happen, it is happening. And Pallas Athena in the sky and our own inner Pallas Athena is taking care of it for us. She is guiding the way, whether we are aware of it or not, to get us from here to there.
Right.
So this is a very powerful T-square that is happening with this gate activation. And remember what I said about a T-square from the first or second class. We've got that opposition there, right? This axis, Aries, Libra, makes the top of the T. And then the stem of the T, which is pointing from this axis down here to these luminary bodies in Capricorn. And what does this T-square give us? It gives us two 90-degree angles. Those 90-degree angles, which we call a square as an astrological aspect. And what have I told you about the square? What does it do? It gives us an opportunity for a breakthrough in consciousness. So here we're seeing that through this T-square, we've got two opportunities being presented to us for breakthroughs in consciousness. And this consciousness breakthrough is going to be from this Mars Eris square to these Capricorn luminaries, and also from this Venus Moon Libra conjunction having a square to these Capricorn luminary energies. So breakthroughs in consciousness for the sacred feminine, breakthroughs in consciousness for the sacred masculine happening here. Isn't that spectacular?
Yes.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Pluto, Jupiter, and this Saturn that's been, conjuncting with them, and will be conjuncting with them later on in the class. So we'll get deeper into that. Now, what's also particularly exquisite about this T-square is that on the Venus Moon side, right over here, they are in trine to the North Node in Gemini. Remember what a trine is. It's that harmonious flow of energy that's supporting it. So if you think about this T-square, and if you think about the polarities on each side being so heavy that is starting to like dip down, right? And so what do you have to do? You have to put something there to hold it up. Have you seen that in buildings where things start to kind of collapse a little bit, and then they take a pole of some kind and they prop it up to keep it from collapsing? That's what's happening by the North Node here to Venus and Moon. And that's what's happening on this end with the galactic center and Ishion propping up Eris, the goddess of radical truth. And so the North Node is where we personally, where humanity is evolving towards. And the galactic center are all of those leading edge light codes that are coming in to evolve us. And what's being evolved? The unforgivable wound, right? Which is being made evolved into the sacred gift. So you see, there's no way that these breakthroughs in consciousness regarding the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine can fail, because the cosmos is propping it up and ensuring this transformation, this evolutionary transformation for us. Now, what's really super spectacular is while we've got the North Node propping up Venus and Moon and the galactic center and Ishion propping up Mars and Eris, they themselves are in opposition to each other, creating a secondary T-square. And who's propping them up? Well, nobody, because we don't have trines here. But what are the breakthroughs in consciousness? Neptune retrograde and Yeshua retrograde in Pisces. So we have the opportunity for breakthroughs in consciousness regarding our connection to the unified source field and having access to Christ consciousness. That's what this T-square is all about. And we have access to it through our North Node, where we're being evolved towards, and the galactic center in Ishion, the sacred gift of Ishion, giving us access to the Christ consciousness that is above us and the Christ consciousness that is within us. This retrograde is turning us within. So this T-square is very much a reflection of the as above, so within mysteries. This Neptune pipeline to source is pipeline to our inner being, who is an extension of source. So while they are propping up these breakthroughs in consciousness around the sacred masculine and sacred feminine, they themselves are creating breakthroughs, opportunities for breakthroughs in accessing the unified source field and Christ consciousness. And that's the sacred gift that these leading edge light codes are bringing in. And those leading edge light codes are totally embedded in this gate activation, not merely by the point of being present as an aspect during this gate activation, but specifically in terms of being the energies that are propping up the Venus moon opposition to the Mars retrograde, Eris retrograde. So this is not a person that's present standing in the circle observing. This is a person that is an intricate dancer in this dance. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Maureen?
Yes.
And then meanwhile, here's our quest mate, Uranus. And Uranus is trine Vesta, goddess of sacred passion, holy desire, and Orcus, our sacred vow, both of them in Virgo, the sign of sacred service to the goddess, sacred service to the sacred feminine. And so Uranus is very much a quest mate, being supported by Vesta and our sacred vow, the sacred vow of humanity to the sacred feminine. And what's interesting here is that Uranus is squaring Medusa and Asmodeus in Leo. Medusa is the goddess of valor, right? All of those patriarchal fears that paralyze us, and Asmodeus showing us where the wounds of those fears are within Leo, within our compassionate heart. And it's in conjunct Magdalene. Now, we've not talked about an in conjunct before. So if you look at an opposition, they're 180 degrees across from each other. An in conjunct is just 30 degrees below at 150 degrees. So it's not quite an opposition. Can you mentally image that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the groovy thing about an in conjunct is that with this placement, people think that they either have to, and using the terms of the luminary bodies here, Uranus and Taurus, that they have to either embody this freedom, this awakening, this liberation, or as the Magdalene, be in sacred service to the beloved, right? Her beloved Yeshua, one or the other. But the groovy part about the inconjunct is that it's giving you the opportunity to realize that you don't have to be one or the other, that you can be both. So you can embody this awakening and be in sacred partnership with the beloved. And in fact, one actually lends to the other, doesn't it? Being in sacred partnership with the beloved, whoever the beloved is, let's just go with your inner being, enables you to embody the awakening, the liberation, right? Any thoughts there, Maureen?
No. No, thank you.
Okay, but that's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. Look at Uranus and who Uranus is dancing with in these aspects. He's dancing with Vesta and Orcus in Virgo. He's dancing with Medusa and Asmodeus in Leo, and he's dancing with the Magdalene in Libra. Okay? But it just so happens that where these luminary bodies are placed, Leo, Virgo, Libra, that each one of them is in a semi-sextile to the other, with the Magdalene and Medusa, Asmodeus being in sextile to each other. And you'll see that on the chart, and I'll explain that significance to you when we look at the chart, okay? But this is really, this in conjunction with Uranus is really spectacular, and I'll show that to you in a minute. Now, in addition to these first four aspects, we have three trines. Juno, Sun in Sekhmet in Scorpio, trine Neptune and Yeshua in Pisces. Okay, we saw Neptune and Yeshua up here with this T square. So they are getting a lot of support from Juno, Sun, and Sekhmet. If you're familiar with the birth of the Aquarian Aries archetype, remember that when Mars and Eris were in the sky, that birth took place when they were opposite the Sun and Sekhmet in Libra. Now they're in Scorpio. So, but they're still traveling together. We also have the Saturn in Capricorn trine Sedna in Taurus. Sedna's retrograde, and we've got Chiron retrograde in Aries, trining Medusa and Asmodeus in Leo. So we've got Medusa and Asmodeus here, and Medusa and Asmodeus up there. And they are receiving this shamanic medicine, the shamanic medicine of Aries, which we will see later. So we're going to focus on these four in the chart. That information is there on the chart so that you can see how they're interplaying with these. And we're going to be talking about these four in your personal sessions. You can look at these on your own. And if you have any questions about them in your personal sessions, you're more than welcome to ask me about them. So let's see this chart. There it is. This purple one, remember up here, purple. Everything in purple relates to this first aspect. So you've got the gate activation of the Venus and Moon opposite the sacred masculine and Eris, making that T square over here to the Jupiter Pluto conjunction and Pallas Athena and Saturn. So there's that T square. And you can see that this end is being propped up over here by the North Node, and this end is being propped up over here by Ischion, and that's where the galactic center is. Just pointing out, galactic center is at 27 Sagittarius. Because when I cast this chart, it gave me too many elements and it wouldn't show it on there. So that's why I'm just pointing it to there. So that's that main gate activation aspect. Does that make sense to you? Can you see that?
Yes.
Right, right. So then we've got this second T square here, right? In this kind of deep red. So we see that over here, the North Node opposite Ischion in the galactic center. Both of them are a part of that main Venus gate activation, because you can see the purple and the red right there. And then the North Node being supported by this Neptune retrograde, Yeshua retrograde. And notice how that ties into one of these trines that we're going to look at. So that's because this trine is activating this Neptune Yeshua, that then those energies then are flowing into this opposition and into that Venus gate. And that's why I wanted to put all of them up there so that you can see how they're interplaying and merging. It's like taking a palette of watercolors, right? And you start painting with your watercolors. Well, first you've got this purple aspect. Now I add this aspect in the red, and all of a sudden, some of its colors start to blend in with the other colors. And now I add this trine here. Well, now that color is blending into the colors here, but because these colors are blended in, it's also blending in with that. And so if you can think of like a watercolor that you're painting and how the colors start to blend together, you can see how the frequencies of these energies in the sky are starting to blend together. And it makes a really beautiful picture. Uranus, okay? So here's Uranus up here. And here he is, square, Vesta, and Orcus. Here he is. He's trying the Magdalene. Here he is. Oops, I'm sorry. He was square. I got it backwards. Trine, Vesta, Orcus, square, Medusa and Asmodeus, and in conjunct, the Magdalene right there. So here's the square, here's the trine, here's the in conjunct. But look here in green. See how they're all connected to each other? This is a semi-sextile. That's a 30-degree aspect, semi-sextile, 30-degree aspect. And the Magdalene, sextile, Medusa, and Asmodeus, that's a 60-degree aspect. So this is very significant here. And we haven't talked about semi-sextiles before either. And this is the way I think about their energetic connection with each other. And you may have heard this analogy before in a private session. When I was a little girl, I had a best friend. And we would plan, I'm talking like first grade, second grade, right? Little girl. We would plan because we had all the same outfits in the same color. They were like yellow shorts with a yellow and white striped shirt, pink shorts with a pink and white striped short, blue shorts with a blue and white striped shirt. Every day we would plan which color we were going to wear the next day. And we would show up and we would be twins, right? Wearing the same outfit. And everywhere we went on campus, we were in line to go to lunch. If we were in the library, if we were out on the playground, we were always holding hands. Wherever we went, we were always holding hands because we were BFFs. And that's how I envision the energy flow between these semi-sextiles. They are BFFs. And they're wearing the same outfit and they're sitting in the library next to each other holding hands, and they're playing out on the playground, skipping around, holding hands. That's how I envision this energy flow. And who is their quest mate? Uranus, giving us breakthroughs in consciousness around those demons and paralyzing fears, right? Mm. And supporting us in our sacred vow and our holy passion, and knowing that we can be both, to be in sacred partnership with our beloved, and we can embody that awakening awareness, that awakening consciousness. I mean, isn't that spectacular? And in each instance, they are helping each other along their unique paths, whether it's the breakthrough in consciousness or embodying and being sacred partners, both. They're helping each other along that way. And then we've got this Juno Sun Sekhmet trine Neptune Yeshua. That's this blue one. You can see how it's blending its energies into this T square and then ultimately that T square. You've got the Saturn Capricorn Sedna in purple. Is this purple here? That's kind of a rose right here. Notice how it's overlapping with the Saturn here. And so it's blending in to that primary T square of the gate activation. And then we've got the Chiron trine Medusa and Asmodeus right here. And look at what it's blending its energies with. Blending its energies with this string of sextiles, and it's blending its energies with this breakthrough in consciousness around our paralyzing fears, the demons there that Asmodeus is making us aware of. Isn't that phenomenal?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah. So we see here that where this third Jupiter Pluto conjunction is happening, that it too is getting the benefit of all of these blended energies because it's a part of that primary T square. And then of course of this trine as well. So that's a really groovy thing. We have here the new moon in Scorpio on the 15th is going to be conjunct right here, this trine. It'll be feeding consciousness right here at 23, right next to Sekhmet, regarding this conjunction and this trine. Scorpio to Pisces, that trine. The full moon lunar eclipse that's happening here at 8 Gemini. Look at where it's happening. The chart for this gate activation has the ascendant at 7 degrees, 45 minutes. And 1 degree away within the first house of this chart is where that lunar eclipse is happening. And so the difference from it being 1 degree this way in the 12th house and 1 degree this way in the first house is huge, because this means that our self-identification, how we know ourselves, is being illuminated and activated by this eclipse. Really huge, right? Because in the 12th house, we would be looking at the things that keep us shackled, right? That the inner spaces that keep us from being able to express ourselves. We see those as being kind of like imprisoned, having, what do you call those? What is it that the police put on you?
Handcuffs.
Handcuffs, right. Having handcuffs on and being shackled and not being able to express the fullness of ourselves. That's the difference. It's happening here, 1 degree within, knowing the fullness, having our consciousness be aware of the fullness of who we are. That's very powerful. So does this chart make sense to you? Can you follow it in terms of the color coding between these aspects and how they're placed on here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now let's look at what's going on with these in a deeper way. So what I had to do, because of the fact that this T square also has those trines supporting each side of this opposition, is I broke it up between 2 slides. So here we've got the T square, here we've got the trines, okay? So that you can see that this T square is happening along the path of conscious equal partnership. That's the breakthrough, right? When we're talking about breakthroughs in consciousness around the sacred feminine and breakthroughs in consciousness around the sacred masculine, new Aquarian archetype, this is what it is. It's the fact that we can embody within us that conscious equal partnership between our inner feminine and our inner masculine, that new archetype of the inner masculine, the fierce protector. And if you need to understand more about that fierce protector, go back and look at the class, the first class on the sacred feminine, because it goes in depth about that archetype and how it's different from the Piscean archetype, okay? So here I've given you the keywords for Libra and Aries, Venus, Moon, Mars, and Eris. The main thing to be aware of is that Mars and Eris are retrograde. So this is pulling you into your inner masculine, into your inner goddess of radical truth. And then for Capricorn here, and all of the luminary bodies in Capricorn, so that you can see what some of the themes around that would be. And start playing with them. Start blending them together like the watercolors and seeing which themes pop out for you, because the themes that pop out for you are the ones that are significant for you. And then we've got the trines here. So again, this is on the path of conscious equal partnership. Got all the Libra, Aries, Gemini, Sagittarius information, the North Node information, the Galactic Center, and Ischion. All of that's there for you. Same thing for this secondary T-square, okay? This is happening. This opposition here is happening on the path of the questmate. This is the path. This is the axis that lunar eclipse is happening on at the end of the month, okay? And then we've got the information here about Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces, and the North Node, the Galactic Center, Ischion. Neptune and Yeshua, again, this is pulling you in. They are retrograde. Your pipeline to your inner being, right? Your inner Christ consciousness. That's what you're getting access to. Being given an opportunity to break through and access, okay? All right, here's the Uranus, trine, square, and conjunct, and the semi-sextiles between those luminary bodies. All of the information is here. I put these in green so that you can see that they're a part of both, or these three aspects as well. Now let's look at the shamanic medicine, because we set up here Chiron retrograde. Okay, so this is pulling us in Aries, trine Medusa and Asmodeus in Leo. So this aspect here, which you can see right here, this one that's very much a part of blending in with this string of semi-sextiles and with what's going on with Uranus in the square, trine, and inconjunct, that shamanic medicine is playing a key role in all of that. So that's the shamanic medicine that I'm looking at. For Aries, it's self-love and personal identity. For Leo, it's speaking truth, honoring your creativity, and inspiring others' expressions. And so using this medicine here, these are the questions that I came up with for the solar plexus chakra. These are the ones, the demons that you're going to work with, and any other questions that occur to you that are relative to any of the other aspects, and most especially in terms of this shamanic medicine. So in what ways is my personal power not fueling my energy, drive, and sense of purpose? Where is my egoic self being overly assertive? How have I shut down my creative ability to move through life with genuine confidence, inner strength, and self-esteem? When does my sense of self-identity feel out of balance with my truth. You know, my personal guru, Satya Sai Baba, says that we should have harmony in thought, word, and deed. Thought, word, and deed, harmony between the three of them. So many people are living life where they don't have harmony in thought, word, and deed. And so this is where I came up with this question. When do who you think you are feels out of balance of what your personal truth is? So are you embodying your personal truth so that you are being authentic to who you really are? Or are you putting on a mask because you're too afraid to show up as your true authentic self? And then these are pretty groovy too. What part of my reality, right? Your inner reality, your outer landscape, are you unable to digest? We're talking solar plexus chakra. You're unable to digest it. That part of your reality is not nourishing you because you're not able to digest it. And then on the other side of it, what part of my reality am I unable to assimilate? Or another word would be integrate. How do these questions feel for you around delving into your solar plexus demons?
Good.
Yeah, good questions.
Yeah. Are any others like coming into your mind, like right now, that you'd like to share with us?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Well, if they do come up as you're working with this, be sure to write them down so that you can share them with us in the group session. All right. Remember the cosmic dance. This is the piece I've been alluding to. Here we are, November 12th, the third Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Okay. Now, what's really super groovy about this third Jupiter, Judo is the combination of Jupiter and Pluto, by the way, if you didn't catch that. Your third Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is, look at where it's happening. 22 degrees Capricorn, 52 minutes. Well, look back up here at the beginning of the year. Where did that Saturn-Pluto conjunction happen at? 22 Capricorn, 47 minutes. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about a 5-minute separation between where they're happening in the sky. We're talking about like the width of a hair, right? Or maybe 2 or 3 hairs. Because remember, there are 30 degrees in an astrological sign. Each degree has 60 minutes. So we're talking 5-minute separation. That's just like I said, very, very narrow. So essentially, while it's not exact, it is definitely activating the place in the sky where this Saturn-Pluto conjunction happened. This is very, very powerful and very, very significant. Now, what does the Saturn conjunct Pluto mean? We haven't talked about this before. I added this as new information. The way I am seeing this, and other people will have different impressions of this, and you're welcome to Google them and look at them, of course. But from my perspective, what this is doing is it's setting us up for the course of this year for the death and the dismantling of all of the old and disempowering structures that we have in our reality, right? So we're talking every kind of structure you can think of: political structures, governmental structures, medical structures, educational structures, infrastructure to your country. Any kind of structure that you can think of is being dismantled and dying away because they don't empower us. In fact, they disempower us. So now let's look at what's going on with this third of the triple Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions. And I would venture to say that all of this has been happening at each of these other two conjunctions, but this is being the third. So we're seeing the finality of this, the death and dismantling of old belief systems, the death and dismantling of excess power, the death and dismantling of arrogant fanaticism, the death and dismantling of lawlessness and sexual taboos. We're seeing this on the world stage. This is what's happening. This Saturn-Pluto conjunction and these triple Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions, what are they preparing us for? I told you they're already preparing us for the rise of the Capricorn goddess of sovereignty in January 2022. But they're also preparing us for this Saturn conjunct Jupiter that's happening in the winter solstice, December 21st. And it's happening at 0 degrees Aquarius, 29 minutes, 9 seconds. That's really precise. Okay, so halfway between 0 degrees and 1 degree. That's where it's happening. The solstice point is 0 degrees Aquarius, so it's conjunct the solstice point. So what's happening is that we are getting this whole new vision for all of these new belief systems, new ways to use power, new ways to be lawful, new ways to have empowering structures. All of that vision is being seeded then. And we wouldn't be able to allow the seed of those new visions to fall and take hold if we hadn't done all of this work in Capricorn, breaking up the soil, breaking up the rocks, getting rid of the weeds, right? For that seed, of that vision to fall into. Can you see how that ties together? And that seed that is being planted at the winter solstice then is what will rise with the Capricorn goddess of sovereignty. That should say 2022. My apologies. When Venus rises as morning star in Capricorn, January 15, 2022. I'll fix that in the slides when I go back. Can you see how all of that is tying together?
Yeah.
And can you see how the Uranus retrogrades and the eclipses on the Gemini Sagittarius are an integral part for all of this unfolding?
Mm-hmm.
These gate activations, you know, I would say that the gate activations are like a wedge that's like, it's gotten into this tiny crack and it just keeps working itself back and forth, and the crack keeps getting wider and wider and wider and wider so that all of that can rush in. You get that analogy?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
These are significant Venus gate activations on this Gemini rainbow goddess journey. Because this is how we're going to rise above these polarities, above this duality, and be able to access, right, this higher frequency of the unified source field of Christ consciousness, Sophia consciousness.
Well, doesn't this all seem to point then to the possibility that it's the collective consciousness where we're going to see this really start to take root, not just one person or one. Yeah. Okay. That really opens up a whole nother area of comfort to me.
Yes,
Yeah.
because remember what Uranus, who is the Lord of Aquarius, is all about. It's
Mhm.
about the collective consciousness of humanity. And we know from the as above, so below mysteries
Mhm.
that this is happening within each one of us. It is also
Mhm.
happening in the collective of humanity. So, absolutely, we are going to start seeing this. This is why I said, I think it was in the Sacred Masculine class, we were talking about when Mercury had gone direct in Libra. This is why I
Mhm.
said, no matter what happens with the election, do not attach to it because something positive is going to come out of it. Do you remember when I
Yeah.
said that?
Yeah, exactly. Um, and that is a huge comforting thought to me, because there's been so much fear around this election from both sides. And so, detaching ourselves from that has been a really difficult thing to do in America. And I'm seeing that in other countries too, that they are looking at this election and thinking, what's happening here? It's interesting too, because a lot of countries have always felt that America sees itself as the center of everything, that we do not understand our relationship to other countries as being equal. And that has created the ugly American uh, persona for us. And now I'm seeing that we are all coming into sync, all of us, around our different leaders and our different ways of looking at it. We're tied together by the coronavirus, for one thing, and how each country is handling that, and how they're working together. So this is expanding the collective consciousness, not just of American, but the whole world.
Exactly.
And that is a really huge thing to wrap our mind around,
Right.
and I am excited about this. I really am finding some super joyous celebration here. That
Yes.
is wonderful.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Because remember, you cannot create and or affect change from fear. Fear is
Mm-mm.
disempowering. If there's going to be a change, it has to be at an elevated frequency, right? So
Mhm.
we've got to focus on keeping our frequency as uplifted as possible. And all of these aspects are helping us to do that because we are the ones that the change is going to stream through.
That is just powerful.
I mean, think
And
about the effect of the galactic center in the heart chakra activation, and now again in the solar plexus
mhm,
activation.
mhm.
All of those leading edge light codes that have never before been present within our galaxy, never before in the history of humanity, streaming in and being activated in our heart chakra and activated in our solar plexus chakra. This stuff, this new creation is coming through us. And this winter solstice is when that seed is getting planted.
Yeah, that is super exciting,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think. Yeah.
yeah. I added this piece too, which I didn't mention. I'm just going to bring it to your awareness. You can look at it. The last Saturn Pluto conjunction, remember I said it was in 1982. Look where it happened. It happened in Libra. And it was basically the year of technology. So it was
Oh yeah.
establishing a new relationship between humanity and technology. The first CD player sold in Japan. We don't even talk about CD players anymore. Times, man of the year was the computer. It wasn't even a man or a woman,
Wow.
right? Disney opened its futuristic park, Epcot, that was all about new technologies. I remember the one place about all the hydroponic growing of vegetables, which was so, leading edge at that time. This new technology of buying gadgets that are smaller and cheaper, all of that was coming in and changing our buying habits. A new industry beginning with genetic engineering of human insulin, genetic engineering. And then I love this one. After many reports of whales becoming, they should say, an endangered species, I'll fix that. The International Whaling Commission decides to end commercial whaling. So look at where we've come from there until now.
Mhm.
And so, with this new Capricorn Pluto conjunction, is our relationship with technology going to be evolved? I think so, and hopefully in a positive way.
I believe so, yes. I think it is.
We've had all these ideas of transhumanism coming on onto the global stage. I'm not so sure about all of that, and so maybe that and it also will be evolved in a positive way, or who knows what that can look like. But whatever this new vision is going to be, that's coming from these Aquarian frequencies, Saturn and Jupiter are going to make them known for us. And this Capricorn goddess of sovereignty is going to help us embody it. So we can know that whatever the vision is, that we all as individuals and as communities and as nations in a global world will become more and more sovereign beings, more and more fully empowered. So these are the Vision Quest opportunities. Look at those areas in Gemini and Sagittarius that I mentioned to see what the eclipses on this axis are activating for you in your solar return chart. Use the keywords we've been practicing with to put together some themes for you and on how this is, your evolutionary path is aligning with those luminary bodies. And then look at that 22 to 25 degree, of Capricorn, right? That's where the Saturn Pluto conjunction and the triple Jupiter Pluto conjunctions are happening. And see what's being activated by those. And use your keywords again to come up with some themes for those activations. And for any of this that you do, please share them in the group session. Any questions about these Vision Quest opportunities?
No.
Okay. All right. So our next support group is going to be on November 21st, Saturday at 2 p.m. That'll be before Thanksgiving. So hopefully you'll all be able to make it. And then, are there any final questions, answers, comments, ahas, concerns, anything that's desiring a voice, desiring to be acknowledged and to be seen that you'd like to speak to right now?
Not from me.
No, me neither.
Great. All right. Well, it's been a great class. I'm really excited about this gate activation in this third Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Remember, it's happening on Thursday, November 12th.
Whew.
I'll just remind the two of you and anybody else who's watching this, if you could go on YouTube and find our YouTube page, the Rose Wheel Mystery School. That's where we have our Sacred Feminine library and our Sacred Masculine library. And this will be uploaded there for anybody on the planet to be able to watch and engage with.
Just one thing came through in this moment was that the gate activation is the day before Friday the 13th. So we have Friday the 13th this month, which feels really powerful in Scorpio, with lunar Samhain being on the 14th with the new moon, and just the connection with Venus and Friday, and it's just I'm doing a big event on Friday the 13th for women. So yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. And why don't you give your website so that people listening can maybe in time be able to possibly join you?
Okay, sure.
So what is your website where they can get that information?
Well, it's probably best just to message me either through email or through, because that information is not there. Everything I'm doing right now is more in a private sense. More big things to come next year.
Okay. So do you want to share your email or are you keeping this private?
No, sure. It's Leela Kundalini Dance at gmail.com.
And Leela is Lila.
KUNDALINI Dance DANCE. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. But that's a lot to remember right now.
Well, anybody watching this can pause this and
Yes.
write it all down. Excellent. Excellent. And we did talk about October 13th, which is not Friday the 13th this year, but at the birth of the Aquarian Aries archetype, we talk about the significance of October 13th and that birth happening on October 13th. 200, was it 230 some years later? I don't remember the exact. Maureen, do you?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen that yet, Leela, maybe you want to look at that and possibly incorporate it in your work with your dance on
Okay.
whatever event you're doing on Friday the 13th.
Okay, great. I got a lot to catch up on this week.
Yes.
All right, you
Yes.
gorgeous goddesses. Thank you so much for your amazing contribution. I greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking to you in your private sessions.
Okay.
Oh, me too. Thank you.
Okie dokie.
Hey.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.